Gerry's one of the most engaging and thoughtful and committed and passionate people that I know in this industry. And it's a real pleasure to have him here today. Let's give a warm welcome to Gerry McGovern.
Morning, everybody. I don't know if you're, some might be familiar with the game of rugby, but Ireland beat New Zealand last weekend after 111 years of trying, and they beat them in Chicago. You know, so we were extremely happy, and we mightn't have got 5 million out in the streets, but we got a couple of 100,000 in the pubs on the evening of the game. So I'd like to give you a little roundup of Irish weather, a summation of Irish weather. This is spring, summer, autumn, and winter in Ireland. And I've got two favorite days in Ireland, and one of them is St. Patrick's Day, and the other is summer. So the Irish, we're always searching for summer, and we're optimists, kind of, when we're not pessimists, we're optimists. But say if 5 years ago or so, if I was looking for Dublin weather, I wanted to check out the weather. Is summer going to finally arrive? And I'd come and I'd search in Google, and I'd get a first search result, which is hopefully a good search result. And then I'd click on that, and I'd go to the page, and I'd find out, oh, it's raining, or whatever it is. And that overall task, that thing I'm trying to do, quantified that a number of years ago, roughly 20 seconds to actually do that. So the total length of time for me to figure out what is the weather out there took about 20 seconds. So if we could just play this little video, it's just showing how long. There's a lot of emphasis in the customer experience about the performance of the system or the performance of the actual page. And it looks like there might be a little problem with the video, but if that video did run, it would show how quickly the page actually downloads. So the Google page downloads in about 1.1 seconds. The Bing page takes about 3.5 seconds. The Yahoo page takes about 5 seconds. Somebody said to me years ago they stopped using Yahoo when they had to search for the search. So that was maybe part of the problem that occurred with Yahoo. So if you calculated there and you looked at the total time of downloading, of the performance of the actual page itself. If you say there's 3 pages, so that's maybe about 4 seconds. So there's maybe 4 seconds of the time taken up by the actual performance of the system. But most of the time is actually writing in the search, figuring out which result to click on, looking at the page itself. So most of the experience in a digital environment is the use of the environment rather than the performance of the environment. So the performance is really important, but the core element of time in the digital world is actually the use of the environment. And typically 80% of a person's time is spent on the page or on that particular environment. And if we really want to enhance the experience, it's more the experience when they're in the page or on the page or using the page that we need to focus on. Google is not in the business of search results. It never has been. Google is in the business of giving us answers as quickly as possible. We don't want search results. We don't particularly want to search. I mean, our doctor doesn't say to us, search twice a day, it's good for you. You know, but I try, but I don't know what to search for. You know, we're not looking to search. We're looking for answers in the process. So 2 years ago or so, if I search for Dublin weather, here's what I get. Right? And now it takes 9 seconds. Google is relentless, and all the top leaders in customer experience are relentless in managing customer time. Amazon is absolutely obsessed in getting you the package as quickly as possible. And it knows every time it saves 10 minutes or a half an hour or whatever, you become more loyal, you buy more stuff. The secret of the customer experience in digital is time management. Not managing the organization's time, but managing the customer's time. So Google is constantly saying, how can we use new technologies to deliver better experiences to our customers, which translate into faster, better answers. So that became possible because of HTML5, because of metadata. They didn't say, let's use HTML5, let's use metadata. They said, how do we make the answers get to the customer faster than we could a couple of years ago? And now, if you go to Chrome, you don't even have to get the search results. You get the answer with type ahead. So now it's 5 seconds. So a couple of things. What was a great experience 5 years ago is no longer a great experience. The concept of what is a great experience is constantly being changed by the new technologies and the new techniques that emerged. But the core underlying theme of what is a great experience is still the same. It is time. If you manage the customer's time rather than your time, and you are relentless in getting people what they need as quickly as possible, you're going to be successful in this new economy. So if we look here, as I said, the page load speed is about 20% of the actual experience of the customer. It's really in the use of the environment that is what is underneath that iceberg that we really need to manage, where is the most value that can be derived for the customer. Every time we change technologies, we change the ability to feedback. Feedback is a key driver of advancement in human societies. So the ability for the producer to connect with the consumer and to see how that person is consuming that and then respond to that consumption. The first maps were created around the first print maps were created around 1570. And within about a 20-30-year period, there was 28 editions of this famous Dutch map. There were more changes in mapping in 28 years than had been in the previous 500 years. And the reason was that they now had copies. They now had the same copies of the maps that they could send around the world, and other cartographers could say, hey, you missed Ireland. Or no, Ireland's much bigger than that, and we got away with that for a couple of centuries, and then they got the satellites, you know. But so they were able to get that feedback loop, and that's one of the key characteristics of modern successful technologies. They increase the capacity of feedback. Now, if you jump forward to today, Google changes its maps 28 times a day. Google has people waiting and ready. If somebody sends in a piece of feedback and say, you missed this roundabout, they'll triangulate that with other data sets and say, actually, we did miss the roundabout, and they'll draw it in within 20 minutes. So that feedback could have the change initiated within the environment within 20 minutes, because that's what we expect about digital. We expect digital always to be up to date, always to be current, always to be the most accurate in the environment. And those who are in the print mode of changing 28 times over 28 years, that doesn't work anymore. That doesn't work anymore if you want to give a great experience. So key to the digital experience is this constant feedback loop. And core to that is this sense of co-design, that we are designing with the customer. We're designing around the customer. We are organizing. It is the customer today that is moving much faster than the organization. The customer has transformed. Most organizations have not. Right? And that is an irony of the modern age. If you look back 30 or 40 years ago, organizations had all the cool tools, all the cool systems, and the customers had very little. But today, you know, customers are sympathetic for people who work in big companies because they've got crap systems, most of them, and they can hardly communicate. You can find people in LinkedIn, but you can't find people in your own company. You know, what is that? You know, it's a crazy world we live in. We're so behind the customer today who is driving the actual agenda. I heard an excellent talk there a couple of weeks ago from Simon Cross, who's a product manager in Facebook. And he talked about the whole culture of design and how they think within Facebook. And he told a story about Facebook in 2005 and the profile pictures. And how here's John, he's having a great time, he has a wonderful life, and they were looking at the profile pictures, and they were saying, why is John constantly changing his profile pictures? Because John was constantly changing his profile pictures. So they kept asking that question. It says, why can't he work with one profile picture? And by analyzing and really constantly thinking and observing and going out to their customers, they realized that what John was doing was using his profile picture to tell the story of his week. He didn't have another way to do it. This is what he wanted to do. Yes, he wanted a profile picture, but he also wanted to tell everybody out there what an amazing life he had and how wonderful friends he had and how they were all extremely happy and having a fabulous time. So that was very important to John to tell the world that. So they thought about that, and then they said, okay, let's really focus on pictures. We need to really manage this environment because people really want to communicate with pictures a lot in Facebook. And at that time, there was all these big competitors out in the marketplace, all Yahoos and Flickrs and et cetera, really dominating the picture landscape. Now, Facebook allocated 3 people to work on developing a new photo model with it. Not 40, not 50, just 3. Gave them very limited resources, and basically they were told to come up with one killer feature. Not 100 features, not 200, to find the one feature that would really differentiate them in the marketplace. And they taught and they worked and they researched and they did lots and lots of analysis. And what they figured out was that most of the photos that were coming out in Facebook were photos of people. Right. Whereas most of these people were set up by professional photographers. They're in their own photography bubble, and they thought everyone wants to take landscapes, etc., etc., etc. So they were created by photographers for professional photographers. But most people really wanted to take pictures of themselves, having wonderful lives and amazing friends. So basically, the one feature that they came up with was tagging, because tagging is naming and tagging is association. That was the killer feature, but it came out of understanding and empathy for the customer. They didn't sit there and say, oh, we're amazing photographers ourselves. We'll come up with something amazing based on our teams. The worst way to design digital is to have 5 smart people in a room drinking lattes. And the longer you leave them, the worse the design actually becomes. Right. The great digital design is get into the world of the customer, get into their daily lives. And digital is a bridge from production to consumption. For the first time, we can really look into people's lives if we want to. We need 2 skills, empathy, but the next skill is humility. To actually say that really these are the clever people, these are the designers. We don't design the experience. We design for the experience that is already happening. And we enhance it and we elevate it in the process. So they introduced tagging, and within 2 years they were 10 times bigger than the top 10 other competitors. You know, by truly understanding, it's not about throwing loads of stuff. It's often about that clinical understanding of what is the top task, what is the essence of the environment, and really designing and excelling with that environment. So John was still having a great life and was still changing his profile picture. So why was that happening? They were wondering, oh, we now created the background picture to give the context, but still changing the profile picture. And John was using the profile picture to tell people about, hey, I'm off on vacation or on holidays. You know, so they thought about that. Vacation time suckers. Basically, I'm having a great life. I'm off on vacation, etc. So then they started designing, how can we create little features or stuff that allow you to set times for certain profiles for the next 2 weeks, etc. They were constantly learning, because look at it, you know, this wonderful thing. But I mean, the question is, why are they running? You know, they're probably running away from John or running away from the shark. So maybe they're not having that great a time. But still he was changing his, it was driving them crazy. Still changing this profile picture more than usual. So they kept asking the questions, kept asking. And they found out that sometimes they were using the profile pictures for campaigns or for things that they actually supported in the process. So they created stuff that allowed you the filters, etc. But all of this came, it wasn't the clever people in Facebook who were amazing designers. It was the clever people in Facebook who were living in the world of their customers, understanding the world of their customers, and designing with the customer, enhancing the experience rather than trying to control the experience. Don't control the experience, give the customer the controls. Don't design to control, design to give control. Because if you don't give control today to the powerful customer, you're in a lot of trouble. Around us, it's everywhere. It's in Ireland, it's in the US, it's in South Korea, it's in Poland. There is a collapse of trust. There is a collapse in belief in the old institutions and the old elites around the world. Nobody trusts financial institutions. Even charities are under severe pressure. There's this huge skepticism towards establishments and brands and experts around the world. And as Bryce said, there's a bubble. There's a huge organizational bubble. There's a tremendous delusionment, particularly at a senior management level in a great many organizations around the world. This was a study done a couple of years ago, and it asked executive distrust. 88% of executives said that they use online content to influence their decision-making. They go online to help them research and make decisions, but only 9% of them trust vendor websites in the process. So there's huge skepticism out there towards traditional marketing concepts and selling concepts that have been used for 40 years. Companies here saying that 80% of them feel that they are delivering a superior customer experience, but only 8% of customers feeling that they're getting a superior customer experience. There's a bubble of conceptualization of what we think we're doing versus what people think they're actually getting out there. And we need to really wake up from that bubble that we're in. There's a trust shift. So trust has shifted away from organizations and established religions, etc., towards ourselves and our peer group. So there's been a shift away from organizations to me and my friends. And maybe the customer lives in their own little bubble now, right, with me and my friends. People have never had more confidence in themselves and in their own peer groups. And they never have had less confidence in the institutions of society. And where that's going to lead us is, I don't know, but that shift is there. And if you don't basically deal with that concept of the skeptical, cynical customer, this expectation of loyalty is out the window for most people these days. The whole concept, we trust what we use. We measure use today rather than trust. You don't trust Google, but you use Google. If it's useful, we'll use it. We won't trust it necessarily, but we'll use it. And when it stops being useful, we move on. So we measure use rather than we measure trust if we want to be successful. So the value of where companies lies, where is value going in this day and age? 40 years ago, most value was in physical assets. In the buildings, in the factories, in the machines, in the physical things that you have. But value has moved to the intangible assets in the environment. So what are the intangible assets? Well, you think brand, so to speak, and intellectual property. Yes, they're components. But the new growing intangible asset is the current customer. Right? There's a shift in the value equation away from brand towards the customer. It is the customer that will be the future of your value, not your brand. It is your current customer that is the core of the future. And if you lose that current customer, you're in severe trouble. And the current customer is the worst treated in most organizations. It's like most organizations are like Italian lovers. If trying to attract you, they'll promise you everything on earth. As soon as you get married, they couldn't care less about you, right? That's the way we treat most customers. We promise them everything in the sales and the marketing. We love you, we'll give you the longer you stay with most customers, the more you get ripped off. The longer you stay with most organizations, the more they overcharge you. Right? We see current customers as cash cows, people that we can exploit. But you know what? They realize that. They know that they're suckers if they stay with companies. So disloyalty is going to be dominant and driving in the future. And people will only stay with organizations that they feel are making their lives more convenient and more useful. The value is in the customer, and particularly the current customer in the process. The biggest challenge that we all face is really thinking like the customer. The real transformation is not technological. You know, technology is just the enabler of the actual change. The hardest thing for an organization to do is really, truly become empathetic with the customer. And it's becoming harder with digital. Because if you go back 40 years ago and you look at, say, an organization that has 100 employees, you would estimate maybe 20 or 30 of those employees had some sort of interaction with their customers. They're either sales reps or receptionists or in a store or whatever. But you come today to a typical organization today with 100 employees, and the percentage of those who are interacting with their customers are often much less, and particularly if it's a digital organization. So digital has actually closed down the connections and the channels to the customer in an age when it has never been more important to understand our customers. So in an age when customers are so confident in themselves and so dominant in the marketplace, we have never known them less. We have never understood them less. And don't think if you look at all that big data, you're going to understand your customer. Right? We have never had less channels for empathy for our customers. So your job, or the job of the customer experience, is to be that channel, to flood the organization with the experience of the customer. How do we bring the customer in? How do we bring the organization out? How do we have TVs in the reception area showing our customers on the site this moment, trying to do stuff? How do we make sure that all our programmers, at least Slack, every one of their programmers must go on customer support for 2 hours a month? Every Monday morning, Slack has a senior management meeting on top support requests. Slack's, the second largest group of employees in Slack is customer experience, customer support people, next to the programmers. That's why Slack is Slack. Right? Because it actually is easy. It doesn't bullshit you about being easy. It actually is useful. Right? We have sold, and Slack is sold to the people who use it, not to the historical way we sell to organizations. We sell to the customer, who is the IT manager. We sell to the people who never use the bloody thing. That's why we get such horrendous software within most organizations, because we don't care about the actual customer, the actual user within the environment. We have got to transform that thinking. We have got to shift that thinking. Otherwise, we're going to be in severe troubles. It's natural to focus on ourselves, to focus within our own bubbles. If this lady had a dog, she'd probably have a dog like this. Yeah, that's okay. You know, that's the type of dog you want, right? And if this fella had a dog, he'd probably have a dog like this. You know, that's okay, that's okay. And this lady, this would be her dog, right? Because we like to surround ourselves. That's why I hear lots of people talking about personas now today. I used to teach personas for years. I stopped doing it because I'd be in these workshops and I'd have all these pictures. I'd bring all these pictures with me, 40 or 50 pictures. And halfway through the workshop, I'd ask people to come up and I'd say, now come up and take a picture of your persona, the person that you're actually designing for. And you know what people always did? They always took the pretty pictures. They always left the ordinary looking people. They all wanted rock stars as personas. You know, they all want the perfect customers. That's the extreme danger of we create within our world. Why do you need personas if you're constantly in touch with your customers? Personas are an invention, a fiction, when we actually don't really know our customers and we don't really want to put in the effort. We should be constantly in touch every day with our customers if we are truly customer experience, because this is how we see ourselves, right? But this is the dog that the customer wants, right? What the customer wants may, in many situations, not be what we want, and we might even like it. Often we might consider it an ugly dog, but if the customer likes it, that's the dog we give the customer, right? That's our challenge. Often the stuff the customer wants, we don't even like in the process. We're bored with it, but we get paid to be bored, right? So it's point 12 on your job application, right? So this is Aristotle's universe. This is Aristotle's, and he was a very clever guy, Aristotle, but he got a couple of things wrong, right? Even the experts back 2,000 years ago were wrong now and then, right? And this is a very human concept because we all think this way. I am a human, I'm standing on the earth, therefore the earth must be the center of the universe because I'm the center of the universe in the process. It's absolute, and if you said anything else for 15 centuries, you know what happened to you? You got burned at a stake, right? You got in a lot of trouble. Right, so Bryce started off this morning by asking everyone to stand up, and I'd like to finish the session by asking you, please, could you please just stand up? Because I've got a new technique, I know it won't replace yoga and stuff, but it's a kind of a meditative technique in the process to help you really get in touch with your inner empathy for your customer. And it's basically that you repeat this every morning, and you basically say this: we are not the center of the universe, right? So I know you can do it, So I want you to say, we are not the center of the universe. So every morning you get together, a group hug with your team, and you say 5 times, we are not the center of the universe. And then you say, the customer is, and you'll feel so much better. Thank you.